This video is for Jeff. No advertisements and no crappy music. Jeff had acquired this Polar Bair 600. It's a 20 gauge semi-progressive shot shell reloader. It was originally manufactured by Pacifica, and that company was acquired by Bair, and then Bair was acquired by Hornady. Hornady makes a unit similar to this, although I don't think the modern parts are interchangeable. So Jeff, you would fix this tube. I drilled some holes and was able to put these screws in, and I manufactured some caps, so that works. And then remember this, Jeff? This was the primer feed thing. This thing's ridiculous. So there's one primer in there now. It goes into this. It goes into the primer tube, like that. Which really, I think, is ridiculous. But you just turn. You turn this handle. I mean this knob. And then the primer drops down into the primer feed tube. So we'll put that aside because that was all wrong. I had to readjust that. But it works now. Now there's a primer, and then they're ready for the primer release. Show you how this works. So your first stage, other than sizing, would be to deprime. And when you deprime, the primer comes out of the primer tube, and the primer releases it right down into that slot. It's perfect. Slide this over, slide the shell plate, and it drops right into this hole. So if you can see that, it's right in there. So you seat the primer. At the same time, the powder drops. So first, about half stroke seats the primer, and then up here, once you finish the stroke, then the powder drops. So speaking of powder, this machine was originally set up for a 1 ounce load, which in 20 gauge is unnecessary. So I took the shot bushing out, applied a couple coats of nail polish. Now it throws a 7/8 ounce load. Same with the powder bushing. It was only throwing about 14 grains of powder, which would have been correct for the 1 ounce recipe. But now I drilled that out. So now we're getting 16.5 grains of unique, which is the load that I like for these federal cases. Could use gun club cases. AA cases are going to be a little tighter. We can talk about that later. So after we get the powder in there, then the next stage is the wad. This has a wad. The wad holder rotates. I guess you can. So I guess you don't have to reach in there. You put the wad in, then it goes through, drops the wad, but it doesn't drop the shot in this station. You have to move the shell to the next station, and then it drops the shot. And then the fifth station is the starter crimp, which is this unit back there, and then finish crimp, and then it comes out. We won't do any reloading on this part 1 video. We'll have a part 2 video. This assembly had a bolt with a nut, so I removed that and just put this. I put this linch pin. It's like an AR-15. Just pull the pin, and then this whole assembly comes off now. Because otherwise, it was just going to tilt. Oh, there's a little latch back here. So if you see this latch right there, you have to kind of pull that up. Set this down, and then this whole assembly comes off. It's much easier to deal with. Otherwise, you're tilting it back and dumping it out. I mean, these tubes are like 18 inches long. It's ridiculous. So you can just set these down. After you empty them, you can set them down and get them out of the way. There's some other idiosyncrasies about this. There's a couple washers in here, so you have to be careful. You can take these tubes right off. What I do, you can take the tubes off, turn it upside down, and the bushings come out, but you won't need to do any of that. So if that's the case, just to dump the shot, then you can put this right back on. Got to make sure this goes right in between. We want this all the way back. That's got to go in between that fork right there. And then the linch pin goes back in. There, I'll push it in further after the video. I have to set the phone down. There, the linchpin's in. So part 2, we'll actually reload some shells. I just wanted to mention that I'd spent a couple days cleaning and removing all the dirt and rust. This clip was broken, remember, and then I glued it back together. I made a mold and then I created one out of rubber, but it didn't seem to hold, so I had to glue the top. And also the primer release wasn't working properly, so I had to adjust that, and then I had to glue it so it would be nice and firm, so it would drop the primer in the slot every time. So I'm glad about that. It worked out okay. Part 2 coming up. Thanks for watching.